It was announced literally years ago that Joe Martin would be reprising the role of the Fugitive Doctor for Big Finish audio dramas, but we've only got the actual details of those releases in the past couple of months, including a surprise appearance in the Coda, the final act of the Doctor Who Once and Future 60th anniversary celebration for Big Finish, where she'll be teaming up with or fighting against the War Doctor, played by the brilliant Jonathan Carley, in a story written by Tim Foley, who is just an incredible writer for Big Finish, and I'm really anticipating this. This comes out next month. This will be her Big Finish debut as well. However, after that, we've got Doctor Who The Fugitive Doctor Most Wanted. This comes out in January 2025 and will be followed with a second box set which comes out TBA. So this one, The Fugitive Doctor Most Wanted, features Joe Martin and Alice Krieg in a trilogy of stories: Fast Times by Robert Valentine, The Legend of Baba Yaga by Rashana Patel, and The Dimension of Lost Things by Lisa McMullen. And of course, we've got our first bits of details here: the casting of Joe Martin, Alice Krieg and Nicholas Briggs as the Daleks, and also just some preliminary details about who is involved in it. We'll get more details in the next few months. However, what actually sparked quite a bit of discourse and discussion was this cover. It's a really cool cover. Joe Martin looks brilliant there. The cover was done by Simon Holub, who's done quite a lot for Big Finish before. But what got quite a bit of discussion and discourse on social media were these Daleks, which you can see on the cover here. This one, classic, like Peter Cushing TV movie colours on one of those floating discs from the comics from the 1960s. Because the idea of Joe Martin making a Big Finish debut and then just popping the Daleks on the cover got so much discourse on social media that the Daleks started trending for about 12 hours on UK Twitter. People had a lot to say about this, and I think it's kind of interesting that the idea of having the Daleks be with Joe Martin in her debut Big Finish box set was something that kind of turned off a lot of people. Now, I do think a lot of people will still be listening to this set. I think that this is something that Big Finish will want to kind of make a bit of a safer bet, because along with Jodie Whittaker, who is starting her adventures with Big Finish starting from next year as well, with Mandip Gill reprising a role as Yasmin Khan, those two are going to have a Big Finish box set in 2025, and I think that Big Finish wants to draw in an audience, kind of like what they did with the Ninth Doctor with his first set of box sets. They brought in the Cybermen, a couple of box sets in, the Sontarans a couple after that as well. They want these familiar elements to make the audio medium, these audio dramas, a bit more accessible to somebody who has never listened to this box set before. It's why the Ninth Doctor first story, The Ravagers, it's kind of more interesting structurally, and it's more of a vessel to get the Ninth Doctor in a bunch of situations, and it makes it a pretty easy, accessible jumping on point for someone who might not have listened to Big Finish before but has always wanted to try. And with the casting of Christopher Eccleston and now Joe Martin, they might actually dive into that. And then once you're into Big Finish, then you might dive into a lot of other things like the War Doctor, like the Adventures of Bernie Summerfield and stuff like that. Now, on the face of it, the idea of the Fugitive Doctor facing off against the Daleks, I kind of personally find that pretty interesting from a canon perspective. Like, okay, so if we have no idea if this box set is going to plant a flag as to where the Fugitive Doctor is in the Doctor's timeline. Are they a Season 6B between Troughton and Pertwee Doctor? Are they a pre-Hartnell Doctor? Are they a Morbius Doctor or whatever? We're not entirely sure right now from the TV show's perspective. However, it has been confirmed that Chris Chibnall has had many meetings with Nicholas Briggs and Jason Haig Ellery and the creators of this box set to have some creative input as to the character of the Fugitive Doctor and what adventures that she might undergo. So that's an interesting involvement, at least from a creative side. But, I'm kind of more interested as to whether or not they will plant a flag in the expanded universe with Joe Martin reprising the role here as well. Because whether you like it or not, actually having the actor, the definitive article who played them on TV, playing them again, there's a sense of officiality to it. These are the official continuing adventures of the Fugitive Doctor. But so, Hartnell was not the first Doctor to encounter the Daleks. Does that lessen his arc? Does that lessen the Doctor's characterization in the 1960s? Not necessarily. There'll be a memory wipe. There'll be some topsy-turvy stuff, of course. Like, they had a brilliant Ninth Doctor and River Song box set this year, where the Ninth Doctor at the end does not remember the encounter, but that still didn't stop those 3 stories, particularly the last one, Archipelago, by Tim Foley, because Tim Foley is just such an absolute chad, from being one of the best hours of audio that I've listened to this year from Big Finish. Archipelago and Victory of the Doctor, the 11th Doctor finale, incredible top tier Big Finish. And so yeah, on the face of it, I kind of agree in principle sort of with Evil Dalek, but, every so often you will get a story like Archipelago that it just works, mate. I'll know it when I hear it. So, we don't know where that's going to be taking place in the timeline, but also the idea that, it's the Daleks again. And I'm going to assume, just for the sake of this example, that people who are just saying, it's the Daleks, it's boring, it's cheap, it's just easy, to pop them on a cover. Well, Big Finish have done some incredibly interesting and fun things with the Daleks over the past few years. And also, just because they're on the cover does not necessarily mean that they're going to heavily feature in those box sets. For example, the War Master, this is in the Daleks range, and the Daleks are on the cover. They're not really in this box set an awful lot. There's maybe one story that kind of features them, and they're not even in it that much. There's not that much Dalek action in the Gallifrey War Room box set as well. The Time War 5 Cass that came out last year, there's kind of half a Dalek story in one of those as well. Escape from Reality, this is part of the Dalek range. They're in the opening prologue of one of the stories. So just because the Daleks are on the cover and feature prominently on the cover does not necessarily mean that they will feature that heavily. Maybe they'll just be sort of scheming in the background and the Daleks and the Fugitive Doctor never actually confront each other. But even if they do, there's been some fascinating, brilliant Dalek stories to come out of Big Finish in the past couple of years. I've not listened to these recent box sets. The Unknown Soldiers from the War Doctor Rises, Stuff of Legend, Trials of a Time Lord, Susan's War, Family. I'm way behind. I've not listened to those yet. I apologize. But Victory of the Doctor, which kind of establishes and canonizes where the Paradigm Daleks went during the 11th Doctor's era, what happened to them. Brilliant. And it's done so tastefully and thoughtfully as well. Fugitive of the Daleks, this is kind of maybe the worst case scenario that you'd want for Most Wanted with a Fugitive Doctor, because this is essentially a remake of The Chase, but there's some Dalek adjacent continuity clarifications, I'll say, that are really fascinating and just really fun to listen to if you're a fan of the Hartnell era. The relationship between the War Doctor and companion Case, and the push and pull between the Daleks and the War Doctor for companionship of Case, played by Ajad Awad, is fascinating. There's a story here where Case, who's this berserker Dalek hybrid human companion of the War Doctor, gets a birthday cake from the Daleks because they become her counselors, her therapists. The TV show would never. What Lies Inside as well has got one of my favourite just pure Dalek stories from the past couple of years, Paradox of the Daleks by John Dorney. This really fun, clever and playful, timey-wimey grandfather paradox story with the 8th Doctor, Liv and Helen, and the Daleks. It's so fun. I'd recommend this. Just pick up What Lies Inside. It's such a really creative Dalek story, and probably one of the best pure back to basics but still really enjoyable Dalek stories of the past couple of years. There's some fun, weird horror, post-Evil of the Dalek stuff with Beyond War Games as well, etc., etc. I could go on. Dalek Universe as well. Dalek Universe 1, 2, and 3 barely feature the Daleks. The title is kind of a bit misleading, but there's only maybe 2.5 episodes out of these 9 stories that actually feature the Daleks significantly. And Doctor Who After the Daleks, the early adventures starring Caroline Ford after she's been left by the Doctor on a post-invasion Earth, they're barely in the story. They're the inciting incident, and then it becomes a human political drama. So the idea of, the Daleks are on the cover of the Joe Martin Fugitive Doctor box set, so it's going to be a boring bog standard Dalek story, they're playing it safe. Not necessarily. Now, I'm not here to try and kiss ass for Big Finish. They do send me review copies, and I do have a good relationship with some of the creative team on not just this box set, but other box sets and actors and creatives as well, So I'm not here to try and like play devil's advocate too much. I can understand where the impulse comes from. However, Big Finish have got a very good recent track record with the Daleks, to the extent that I really wish that the TV show was a lot more experimental with them. Even so, Eve of the Daleks was fun. I enjoyed Revolution of the Daleks and Resolution as well. Those were fun. But if you want like peak Dalek material from the past couple of years, you do go to Big Finish, and you do go for box sets like Victory of the Doctor. You do go for box sets like The War Doctor Begins, Enemy Mine, and Comrade in Arms. You do go for What Lies Inside with Paradox of the Daleks. And sometimes they'll, play it safe. Sometimes it'll be a bit of a bog standard Dalek story, like Scream of the Daleks from this 7th Doctor box set as well. But then again, you might get an absolute unabashed banger, like the Dalek Universe stories, something that plays it a little bit more experimental. Genetics of the Daleks is an awful lot of fun as well. Time War, Gallifrey 4 as well, has a really fun, like, duality of leadership, comparing Hot Rassilon, played by Richard Armitage, with the Emperor Dalek's God Complex as well. So, there's a little bit of, like, fan servicey, oh god, the 5th Doctor is in the Time War now. Like, this is an actual Big Finish story from this, past couple of years, that's a thing. But, let's see. When we get to January, I'll listen to it, I'll review it, I'll let you know. But let's not write it off just because there's Daleks on the cover. And as we've seen in the past, just because there's Daleks on the cover doesn't mean that the story is about the Daleks. We'll see. If the Paradigm Daleks got a renaissance with the Victory of the Doctor, do you think they can make a comeback in the TV series and redeem themselves? Oh, if you've listened to Victory of the Doctor, you know they're not coming back.